Hi, everybody. Hey, listen, we were up about 20 minutes ago, me and Will Brink, and that was my fault. My fourth night in a row of technological gaffes, but here we are. We had to test some stuff. In fact, I'm going to chew up a little time now because Will's going to do some technological stuff. So this stream is also on his page at the same time because we have his people joining our people. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Will Brink, in the industry of nutrition and fitness, his name is So this stream is also on his page at the same time because we have his people joining our people. It's going to be a lot of fun. I got to take care of the industry of nutrition and fitness. His name. That should have took care of the feedback. I think it did. So anyway, in any event, you can see the title of this: over-the-counter testosterone and human growth hormone boosters. Are they a waste of money? And a lot of the details that go behind that. A guy like Will. We'll know the answers to this, and Will, you've done a lot of work in the industry for a long time, and you've had a lot of success. Tell us a little bit about where you come from and what you do.
Well, I grew up as a poor black man in the South. Do you remember that? Remember that's coming. You're old enough to remember the jerk.
I think that's Steve Martin, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite movies of all time.
I hate myself all the time on here.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorites. All right, so I people don't mind. We're a little clunky here tonight because we're trying different technical stuff. I posted this link on my page. I hope it's working. I think it is. I'm gonna type a little something. You all see this. I'm gonna post something. So it's gonna get a little clunky, but we're gonna try to make this all work. So I'm seeing you on my page. Hopefully, other people are seeing it too.
I'm going to check myself. So I could check, and if I also see it, then there must be a broader breadth, which is good. Okay. How's everybody doing? If you're here, let us know where you're from, and as always, put your questions in. If we don't get these, Will's going to go over a lot of stuff. Hi, Jackie. How are you? And it's really, really good. If you have questions, if we don't get to them, we will get back to you personally. Give us a thumbs up and share this if you think it's relevant and worthwhile. I'm sure you will. And we do thank you, as always, for being here. Let me check yours, Will. I hope you have your supplement questions. Will works in the supplement industry. He consults with some of the biggest companies and helps them make decisions to produce products that help find folks just like you. I can't get there yet. My computer's slow, man. I don't know what. It's like, using a phone with two cups and a string here.
Yeah, well, we're getting there. So all right.
Oh, here we go. How many here use any type of testosterone or growth hormone boosters? I know I've been caught in that conundrum in the past. Pembroke, Jackie, you're in Pembroke. Will, is that close to you down in Florida, Pembroke?
Pembroke Pines, I think. Yeah, it's not that far.
So. Yeah. Jackie, you're right there. You're not far from Will.
So now, Michael? Are you looking on your personal?
No, I'm going to yours. Will Brink. Here we go. Yeah, and it's up.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, so we're making progress here. This is the first time I have ever live streamed something on my page and somebody else's page at the same time.
Yeah, it seems like it's working, and I'm telling you, yes. I just liked on your "Can you all see this?"
All right, good. All right, yeah, so people will pop up when they pop up.
And we got some people coming on now. Let me just start by. Will does an interesting thing here on Thursdays. He enjoys a cocktail and keeps it fast and loose. There you go. I already asked him, is diet soda as bad as everyone says? And he says, it will not turn my brain to mush, so I will keep drinking. And I told him the funny, I'm just going to ramble. Will's going to do most of the talking. But as far as beer goes, that is beer he's drinking. I told him the story as to why I never had a beer, because Big Mike Katz, when I was a kid, used to drive me to camp, and I asked him, how can I become a champion like you? And he said, Michael, don't drink any of that damn beer and stay out of trouble and go to school. So I did all that. I never had a beer to this day, because after I realized I couldn't become a champion, I said, let me see how far I can go without drinking beer. And I've never had one, but of course I've had martinis and liquors and other fun things.
I would only say to that for one, Mike Katz is the nicest guy in all of the
nicest
guy in all. And I used to actually, when I was an NPC judge in the Northeast, Mike was always the MC. So I hung out with Mike many, many times. So having said that, all I will say about the beer thing was that Arnold drank beer and Arnold beat Katz's butt.
That's right. I don't know if Mike was drinking beer. His son might be on here. Mike Katz Jr. is here a lot.
I don't know if he was, but Arnold was celebrating drinking beer and smoking a doobie, and was notorious for that. So that's all I will say. And I will again add that Mike Katz is probably the nicest guy in all of bodybuilding. So
I had Porter Cottrell on last night, and boy, what another nice guy. Like a real gentleman. And Will, if you ever deal with John Torilli, who's a very nice guy, don't go on his page and swear, because he told me, Dr. Deuce, it's good to have you here, but please no swearing. He said back in the Joe Weider days, did you see any swearing in Muscle Builder? I'm like, you're right. No. And we got Mark A. South from Bradford, Pennsylvania. Hi, Mark. How are you? So, Will, tell me, we've got kids and guys, and not just kids, but that old conundrum of getting you hear this all the time, your T, low T, growth hormone, does it secrete while I'm sleeping, this and that. You can go to Walgreens, not only Vitamin Shop. They got a over-the-counter testosterone, all natural preparation for like 300 some odd bucks, and it says that it will. More than that. I don't know if it directly says this will increase. It infers that you can increase your T levels by taking this stuff.
Right. Well, we have to look at T levels or the topic in general. That is the category. When I look at supplements like T boosters, GH boosters, I tend to look at them as a category of supplements versus, one ingredient versus the other ingredient. By and large, the T boosters are a complete waste of money. And they have been since the day they were, came out. They usually are based on either, shoddy science or no science, animal studies, and they come around, like bell bottoms, like bad fashion. They come around about every 10 years and get blown out of the water because they don't work, and then somebody comes up with a new one. I mean, the basic model of how they do it is somebody will do a study in some country, that really doesn't have any oversight.
Quality control.
Quality control, but just as much as, oversight as who's doing the study and all that. There's a pecking order.
You're not talking about China, are you?
Well, not even China, but like Russia was famous. I remember back in the day. I don't know if you're old enough to remember back in the day that a study came out that showed that like cistosterol or something was effective as Dianabol.
I do remember that
study. That's the ridiculous stuff that would come out of Russia was famous for that. And of course, none of that stuff did anything. There's some other countries, though, like I say, the quality of the research is not great, shall we say. And there's a pecking order there. So you'll do a bad study, you'll sell it, you'll make a bunch of money, 2, 3, 4 years. Then someone will come along, a good quality lab, third-party lab will test it, to see if it does anything, and it doesn't do jack. And by then they've already made their money, and they don't care. And then they go on to the next, nonsense thing.
Are you saying the same tenets apply to human growth hormone boosters?
Well, yeah, it's the same issue. I mean, there's different issues, of course, but the same basic premise. Actually, a little different. That is, there's a lot of supplements that will boost GH, but again, transient. So the problem's a little different. I remember back in the day, arginine ornithine, right?
Oh, yeah.
Arginine ornithine was everywhere. We were all taking arginine ornithine. That
Yep.
will cause a big spike in, but a transient spike in GH doesn't do a thing for body composition or strength or muscle mass. Even real GH is actually pretty underwhelming if you look at the studies in young, healthy guys with GH. It doesn't do a whole lot. Even the real stuff, people that are deficient, obviously older people, get real benefits from GH. But
Will, let me stop you though. But talking to Jerry Brain, he was telling me he knows of bodybuilders who take, and I don't know where the money comes from, but they go up to 50 units of growth a day.
Right, but none of them are taking it alone.
Well, that's true, right.
So combined, now there's some synergism, and there is data to show that when GH is combined with testosterone and stuff, there is some synergism there.
There is.
But when you've got guys that are taking 10, 12, or 20 different things and GH, it's pretty damn hard to know what is doing what, whether it's the GH or something else. But there's definitely is some synergism to adding GH to anabolics.
There is.
There appears to be, at least testosterone, but there's not a lot of. But by itself, GH is pretty unimpressive.
Another problem is these guys are not very good historians. In other words, I've always said this, and tell me if you agree. as a society, we kind of applaud people who come back, they overcome alcoholism or they overcome, illicit drug use, and then they go on a speaking tour and, the whole thing. But you don't really see that with steroids or PED use because people are not as forthright or forthcoming because they're admitting to cheating. So it's hard to get a group to even do a study with because nobody wants to admit. Would you say that comes into play at all?
Yeah. I mean, some of the ones that some of the studies I see that I think are kind of funny are, and Rick, actually, you got to ask Rick about these when you talk to Rick Combs. There's some funny studies out there that show that says,
I got Rick next week.
Yeah, it says the study will say something like, high school kids are using more steroids, as if they even knew what a steroid was. They're asking, these are kids, they're asking them anonymously. These kids wouldn't know a steroid from Pez, and they're not using more steroids. But the point being that you're not going to get bodybuilders or, high school kids or college kids or whatever to be honest about what they're taking. Most of what they're taking also is counterfeit, so they don't even know what they're taking half the time anyway. It's almost impossible to get an accurate picture of, unless you know them and you're working with them. Back in the day, I used to do pre-contest prep work for pro bodybuilders and had a pretty good reputation for it. And I got out of that business because mostly the laws changed. It was not a big deal. But when
let me ask you, what would be different if you were doing those programs for these guys today?
Today, that's a good question. I guess I couldn't, I don't have a good answer for you because I'm out of the loop as to what is latest and greatest in pro bodybuilding. It's not, I don't really care enough about pro bodybuilding to tell you what is latest and greatest. I think the basics are still the basics. I don't know if there's really a lot different that I would advise that I, used to advise, but I have to admit I'm not up on all the latest and greatest peptides and that type of thing. There's a lot of stuff these guys are doing, but I got out of the business not only because the laws changed, but because some of the crazy when intravenous Lasix came into the picture, which was going to kill people.
It scares the hell out of me just thinking about it.
Plasma expanders. Well, when the laws changed, and then these guys were starting to do stuff that I really didn't want any part of, and my good buddy Dan Duchesne called me and said, I'm going to try.
Well, I'm sorry. Did you work with Dan, or you just knew?
We were friends. We were good buddies. I didn't really work with him per se, if that makes any
right.
But he and I we knew each other really well. We used to talk on the phone, once a week, and he would call me up. And one time he called me up and he said, "Will, I'm training this bodybuilder, and I'm going to experiment with some plasma expanders, and would you like to help? And I'm going to need a crash cart nurse." Wow. And I said, "Oh, what?" He goes, "Well, if you use too much of the stuff, the person can crash." And I'm like, "Dan, I don't want any part of that. No, thank you. I'm allergic to prison," which Dan was not. I told him, so a lot of things started to happen around that late 90s and stuff where, again, guys were only looking, remember, size started to dominate. It wasn't about conditioning and symmetry and shape.
Hey, Will, was the advent of the enormous size, was that with Haney or was that more with Yates when it really started getting?
Yates. I would have to say that was Yates, and then Yates really set the standard of big, really big. Haney still had, a small waist. He still had a flat stomach. I think he might have been the first. He might have ushered in the big man, winner. But I still don't tend to blame him for sort of the size at all cost look.
Right, I agree.
I think it's really kind of Dorian, and then post Dorian is where that really started to come in. I think Dorian really kind of set the standard for that, size at all cost look. And that was when things, like I say, I was right in the press box when.
Excuse me, 1 second, Will. Hi, Gary, Ozark, Missouri. Never been to Ozark. And Boris Desirasi. Hi, how are you, Boris? Boris, where are you typing in from? Let us know. I'm sorry, Will. Go ahead. Hey, Will, as far as the enormous size that started to proliferate and I don't like to just say drugs because I think things done right, food is the most potent drug, but do you think that was chemical warfare combined with eating 12 times a day, combined with different training techniques? I mean, how did guys get so much bigger? Because evolutionarily speaking, you're still dealing with the same type of human 30 years apart.
I hate to sound negative, Michael, but the only thing that really changed, frankly, was just more drugs.
Right.
There was no big changes in training. Diet really didn't. I mean, there was a short period in the 80s where they went through sort of a high carb phase, and people looked like shit for a while, and they got over it.
Was that Mauro Di Pascal?
No, I think Mario was the other way. Mario was actually one of the first ketogenic guys. Actually,
Right. Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Mario was more sort of loading. He was more manipulating that type of thing. But honestly, what really happened for the most part, I mean, there might have been minor changes in diet or training, but for the most part, it was.
Will, excuse me. You've got one guy from your old hood. Boris is from Dartmouth, Mass. Is that where you hail from?
Yeah, Boris. Now, he's a chiropractor.
No, are you? Boris, I'm a chiropractor also. What's up, brother?
And Boris actually is one of my oldest friends, and Boris was a Olympic hammer thrower. He was one of the world's strongest. Remember the world's strongest man contest back in the day with Ivan Putski and all that?
Yeah.
He watched those. That was him. He was on those on NBC late at night. Yeah.
Boris, man, I got to get in touch with you, man. That is really cool. Maybe I can have you on here. You can talk about that's cool. That's cool stuff. Hey, Rob, we got Rob Harrop here. Will, Rob was a real good amateur. I think, Rob, did you win the Mr. USA? He won one of the national titles back in the 80s when, there was more detail. I mean, he was kind of like more of a Ron Tefel type of guy.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I'd like to say there were differences in nutrition or whatever, but honestly, that was around the time. Remember, back in the day, guys used to have an off season. Remember there was an off season?
Yeah.
Well, this is when at the time things like no off season. Off season was 400 to 600 mgs of testosterone and 400 to 600 mgs of nandrolone. That was off.
Well, I'm going to cut you off just one more time, but Porter Cottrell last night, most down to earth, forthright guy, genuinely nice guy. He was saying he was a fantastic responder. He didn't do a lot. He told me he went on record with this. His first Olympia, his cycle cost him $400. But for the 18 years of competing, he was essentially always on.
Right.
Something. So, and he ended up with some issues. He's okay now, but he did end up with, some problems he had to.
So it really did become a race to, what it became really was who had the genetics to tolerate the highest doses of drugs. That's what it ended up being. Some guys obviously had the genetics to tolerate amazing doses, and some guys didn't. But
Will, what do you say about two guys like this? Ronnie Cole, and I tend to believe this. Kerry Canetzy and Scott, what's up? Tell Scott to take care of that leg. Mr. Junior America, Rob, even still, much more rarefied air than I ever attained. Ronnie Coleman and Kai Green, they said when Ronnie first went and won his first Olympia, still clean. And if you compare him to his last Olympia, I think it was an 80-pound difference. So I tend to believe it. So I would say that's somebody who's a real good responder. Would you agree?
Yeah. You remember, you're talking about genetics of the 0.001% of people that they're going to look better in the gym without drugs than everybody else in the gym looks with drugs. So, and I've known those guys. I've known guys, that you would never know they didn't do drugs, and if they ever did, they would have just been monsters. Those are what we call super responders, and they do exist. They're real. I mean, obviously, I'm only talking at that rarefied air that more drugs was what was getting them, but all those guys up there already had super genetics anyway.
Right.
There's lots of guys in gyms doing as many drugs or more than pro bodybuilders, and they still look like shit.
That's true.
At the end of the day, genetics is everything. Genetics is the number one driver of those guys. Drugs are probably second, then diet and training is, peripheral, frankly.
I have no opinion. I don't care what people do, and I don't mean that in a destructive way, like I don't care, but it's not my business. But I would like to ask you this. It's a little pointed. Speaking of drugs, because they do exist, and let's talk about physique or bodybuilding. How do you compare women using male hormones versus men using male hormones? Just your general thoughts or impressions there. Some of the issues we just discussed.
Again, it's actually a similar discussion to what I was talking about in the late 90s. I worked with a couple of pro female bodybuilders. Again, the ones with the really good genetics actually have done surprisingly low doses of drugs compared to some of their competitors who have to really push it. And some of the girls that I worked with, I said, look, this is my limit. Here's where I'm comfortable doing with you. If you want to go and do this other crazy stuff, because every one of them ends up with a boyfriend who's an expert on steroids.
Really?
Screws them all up.
Hey, Will, is the boyfriend usually kind of fat and out of shape and doesn't lift?
Yeah, there's always. Well, he's usually usually he's the dealer. He's the gym dealer.
Oh, okay.
And he thinks he's an expert, and he gets these girls. The stuff they have heard them on is wild and scary and higher than anything. They're about what your middleweight male bodybuilder is doing.
And the truth in the fact that their changes are irreversible.
Yeah, and that's another point I was going to make. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that the women, whereas the male side effects are pretty reversible once you stop. For the women, the voice and the hair and the enlarged clitoris and all the rest of it is not reversible. When I was working with some of these, an ex-girlfriend of mine won a couple of big regional shows, and then she was top 10 in the, I think, junior nationals and stuff. And then, she said, well, all the girls I talked to are doing this and this, and they're doing more. And I said, look, I think this is as far as you should go. If you want to stay, feminine and have a pretty face and all that, I mean, it's up to you. But I said, this is my line. I'm not going to go any further. And then we ended up breaking up. And I see her the next week or so with the gym dealer, big juiced up guy, and he fucked her all up.
That fast?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, she had a mission. She was going to, she wanted to go be a famous bodybuilder.
Hey, Will, who did you like? Because I know you worked with all kinds of athletes. Who was your prototype? Who was your prototypical favorite, most gratifying type of athlete to work with? And why?
Well, I definitely always enjoyed working with female athletes because they, didn't get their ego involved, did what you give them a diet or whatever, a training thing, and they just did it. I've always enjoyed working with female athletes.
Will, I'm going to stop you because I'll forget. But a couple of top trainers I've worked with and talked with, and you just intimated this, so you may agree. They said comparing women and men and training them, the women always train harder, more strictly, and the more focused. What do you think the reasoning is behind that?
Lack of ego. I think it's a lack of. I think it's not getting their ego involved. I think they're good at the. It's the same thing with shooting. I was an instructor. I was an instructor at Smith & Wesson. I'm a competitive shooter, and I've trained. Taken women to the range many times without an.
Will, you got to change your facial hair because you're like Tony Stark, man. All the different things you do.
Minus the money.
Yeah, right.
Minus the money. But
I hear you. I feel you.
The instructor will tell you this too. Women almost universally are better shots than men are when you take them to the range for the first time. Yes.
How do you account? I hope Gordon Falsetti's listening as far as shooting because he's a marksman. He's a top trainer. Gordon, chime in about that if you're here. Why is that, Will?
The reason why is similar to when you're training them in physique stuff or whatever. You tell them what to do, and they do it. They don't get their egos involved. They don't say, oh, I've watched some television shows. I know what I'm doing. It's even more fun when you bring a couple and the girl outshoots their boyfriend every time. Oh, it drives them bananas. Because you take a woman, generally speaking, and say, okay, here's the grip, here's the sights, here's what you want to do. They go, okay, and they do it. Guys immediately have watched too many Rambo movies. They think they know what they're doing. Blam, 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 and then they don't hit it. And then they get all pissed off. I
think this is one of your guys, Mark A. South. He says that's a fact about women shooters. Two things. Do you think that the men, it's like a dick length contest? Forgive me, everyone. This might be an alcohol edition of our live stream, but it's not a naked edition. And also, what do you think about nootropics? As far as concentration and aim.
Nootropics is a really interesting topic, but it's such a big one. Nootropics is a good thing. I mean, nootropics is such a general term, meaning anything that sort of improves cognition and focus and whatever. And so with nootropics, you really kind of got to narrow it down to a specific ingredient. Obviously, caffeine is a nootropic. Creatine is actually a nootropic. So, yeah, it's actually really good for cognition and energy and all sorts of things.
How about if you overload on caffeine and you get the jitters? It's kind of
Interestingly, now there's an interesting point because the military has done very specific studies on caffeine, and found that the sweet spot dose for making people better marksmen is 200 milligrams.
Really?
Above that, they don't get any better because they get the jitters and they get all fucked up. Below that, but the military actually has done very specific graded dose studies and found the sweet spot, and it does improve marksmanship and focus and mental clarity, is 200 milligrams.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Are you still teaching marksmanship or no more? Or?
No. I mean, I still shoot on occasion and do all that. I was used to compete in IDPA a bit. I was the performance trainer for a SWAT team in New England for a couple of years.
Wow.
And
well, what? Just backtracking a little. And Rob Harrop's wife is a better shot than he is. So Rob, you better watch your P's and Q's at home, man. You know, make sure you're bowing to the power.
It's never failed me yet to take a woman or a couple to the range. We're both new to shooting, and the woman is the better shot out of the box every time. Never failed.
That's something.
Yeah.
Backtracking, what got you into health and fitness as a kid, or?
Well, two things. I mean, a lot of my own stuff I don't talk about, but I'll talk about it. What really got me into it when I was 14 years old in Brooklyn, and I was finding trouble left and right, and trouble was finding me. And my grandmother on my birthday bought me a gym membership. She put $100 in the bank, and she bought me a gym membership to a gym down the street, and to see if it would. And I went to the gym, and I liked it. And
what was the name of the gym?
It was called. Now, there's the funny part about it. I think it was called the Episode. Now, my grandmother was a very old-fashioned lady. It just so happened the gym she signed me up for was the gay gym. Yes, it was the well-known gym in the neighborhood. It was all gay guys. She didn't care. It was the closest gym to the house. She signed me up. So I went there, and of course everybody was nice as could be, and they were very helpful guys, and I had a good time. But of course, people in the neighborhood and stuff. I never, even at that age, I've never been one who gave a shit about peer pressure.
No.
And I didn't care then. I didn't care then. But I'm coming out of the well-known gay gym and getting looks from the neighborhood, kids and whatever. But
wait, you were oblivious. You didn't know. You were just going.
I knew as soon as I walked into place. Yeah, as soon as my grandmother didn't know when she got me the membership.
Oh, okay.
She had no idea. She saw a gym. She thought it would be good for me. When I walked in there, I went, "This is a gay gym."
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was my start.
But hold on, that is unusual for your grandmother to endorse that, because this had to be the 70s or something, right? Well, how, never mind the gays in the gym, just the general public, it was like anathema to anything that was accepted.
Well, like I said, she was clueless. She had no. I obviously I figured it out as soon as I walked in. She had no idea. So I told her that. I went home and I worked out there a couple times. And my grandmother was also very, very open-minded, again, way ahead of her time. So when I got back from the gym, I said, "Grandma, you realize you got me a membership to an all-gay men's gym, right?" And she said, "No, I just thought only men." Now she didn't know women. She said, "I saw a bunch of men. I thought that's who lifts weights, men, right? So I got you a membership."
I think Boris might be challenging you here. He says all tough guys in Brooklyn trained at the gym, R&J Health Studio in Brooklyn, of course.
That is true.
Was that the, what's his name, Julie? What the hell's his name? R&J.
But that was out in Bensonhurst, which was not my neighborhood. I would have had to.
That was Ferrigno's gym in Pumpenheim, right?
Yeah.
R&J, yeah.
Oh, that was.
Boris, did you go there? R&J Health Studio?
He trained there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he knows all the old school guys. But for me, once in a while, because it was such R&J for New York was kind of like the Mecca. It was almost like Gold's out in California.
Right.
Everybody knew R&J. So once in a while, I used to get on a train and go out to R&J, but it was way out of it wasn't in my neighborhood. It was quite a ways away. So I started off in a nice gay gym.
But when you were working out, so how old are you? Like 12 or 13, 14? And what was your diet like? What was your diet like? Were you mindful of that stuff? Did you play sports in school, or what was your trajectory? You liked it and you kept going, or?
Yeah, but I didn't get into things like caring about diet and supplements till I was probably, so I'll tell you here's where I really took a turn as far as
but Will, so you're telling me that you avoided Hoffman's protein of the sea?
Yes. Weeder's protein of the sea didn't come out until, I don't even think it was even around yet. That was the worst tasting stuff in the world.
Alex Ardenti contacted me because he knows I have a can given to me by Mike Katz like 40 years ago. I have a full can of Real Blair's protein, and he wanted it. I never hooked up with him, but he wanted it for his movie Sups. But that stuff supposedly tasted amazing. I don't know if you ever had that.
I don't think so. I had the protein from the sea, which was
oh my god, that was like sewage water.
That was horrible. But no, I didn't get into things like paying attention to like nutrition and stuff, and that type of thing. That was probably around 1920. When I went to college, I started to pay attention.
Right.
So what happened to me? What really got me into the science and really got into health was I got Hodgkin's disease.
Really?
When I was 20 years old, I got Hodgkin's disease.
Wow.
And so here I am. I work out. I'm a regular college kid. I drink beer. I eat okay, nothing special. I took a multivitamin, but I got Hodgkin's disease, and that really changed my whole interest and focus. At the time, I was actually majoring in journalism, and I actually was reading in muscle fitness.
Is this when you were at Harvard?
No, this is at Keene State. I went to Keene State College. Harvard didn't come until I was actually much later, about my mid-30s.
Okay.
But I was actually in Keene, New Hampshire. This is mid-'80s. So I'm actually reading Muscle and Fitness, and I was reading an article about Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw. Remember, they started the first book, The Life Extension, big fat book in the 70s. And in that article about them, they talked about how antioxidants and stuff could be used during cancer treatments. So I took vitamin C and E during my treatments, and I didn't get the damage to my skin and stuff that the doctor said I was going to have. And they said, of course, it's not due to that. And I knew it was. And that was where I got really interested in science and medicine and health. That was where my whole direction changed towards that stuff.
I have to ask you, did you have the non-Hodgkin's?
It was Hodgkin's.
It was Hodgkin's. Yeah, my brother-in-law just passed away from that 2 years ago. He had nondescript pain in his back and he didn't tell anybody for a year. And the doctors, they said, well, if we caught it last year, but now you're stage 4, and that was it. So, but you noticed right away some changes, and you attended to them. That's the biggest key.
Hodgkin's is very curable if you get it early. It's one of the completely curable. It's 100% curable if you find it early. If it moved around, then you're in trouble.
Before we got on here, you and I were talking on the phone about one of the big issues in society today is people have lost their biofeedback. They've destroyed their bodies so badly with the list of long bad habits and the obesity and all that they don't feel anything anymore. And they get something like that, symptoms from Hodgkin's, and they would think, maybe they slept wrong and they wouldn't do anything. And so, of course, they're going to succumb.
I guess and going down, we're considering what we're doing. I was just saying this in a video. We're considering this COVID thing, that most people are so unhealthy right now that this COVID thing, which is not a big deal to most people, but there's so many unhealthy people with compromised immune systems and obese.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's the problem right there. I've never seen a virus that is so takes advantage of that issue. When somebody said that, basically the people that get sick from COVID are the ones with the high comorbidities, right?
Right.
Like obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes. That's half the fucking country.
All of them. Two-thirds of people who were pre-diabetic, I don't know where they get the numbers, they're probably accurate, don't even know they're pre-diabetic.
That's the problem. The whole goddamn country's one comorbidity.
Well, you love the government, how they tell you, 30% of people are obese. I'm like, 30%? 30% might be clear of that. It's the inverse. It's 70%. I don't know.
And I think that also you look at normal, like what's normal for height and weight. If more people become bigger, that's normal. So the charts keep going.
Right.
Up, correct. You know what I'm saying? Right. If the average American 20 years ago, whatever, was 130, now they're 40, then that's normal. And then
the government's got to make it look like they're doing their job. So whatever the foundation, the basis is now for the norm, that's okay. Yeah. Well, it comes back to, we were talking about test boosters and growth hormone. As far as the physiologic window, you and I both know, whoever puts the numbers together, they say anywhere between 212 and 900 is normal. So if you get a kid that's 25 years old, comes to the doctor, and you're 210 or 220, well, you're within normal limits. But you and I are not agreeable to that, are we?
Well, like I say, what's normal, I think, is shifting you know, because if enough people are in that norm, which we would not consider normal, but if you have enough of the population in the median, that's normal.
Then it's okay.
Yeah. Or whatever, you know, they're unhealthy. They're in bad shape. And I think this whole COVID thing has really exposed all that.
It has.
That is going to. I think there's, and of course, nobody wants to look at it. Everybody's talking about everything else, you know, to fix this, but nobody wants to look in the mirror and say that, you know, most of the mortality that we've seen would have been avoided if we didn't have so many obese people. And
Will, let me just attend to Boris here because I don't want him to crush my head like a coconut. He's the world strong man here. He's got some good comments. Lou Ferrigno was at R&J. All the Mafia guys trained there too. Neutral place for all. Guns checked at the door. He said, you survive because of your tenacity. Comorbidity is an American norm. But here's the thing, and I agree. In his practice, everyone he sees in his practice with low back pain is obese. So, yeah. Boris, is that a causation, or is it just like kind of a secondary effect, or it just happens to be there? You can answer when you can. So, Will, so you're training. You obviously got over the Hodgkins, and did you ever compete in anything, strength competition, bodybuilding, nothing like that?
No. You know, I was a judge. The funny thing is, I was a trainer of a lot of people and a judge. And to be honest with you, the more people I trained and the more judging I did, the less interested I became in doing that to myself. You know, but I had to put people through to get them in shape. And the dedication I thought was great, but you know, I'm a very pragmatic person. And for me to do that, to beat the hell out of myself for no money in a plastic trophy, not going to happen.
Will, for all you know, because I've been interviewing a lot of high-level guys, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm very lucky. But there's a repeated theme, and I want to see if you agree, especially with all the knowledge you have and all the tricks you may have, and all the techniques you've employed. Like John Romano said, and most have agreed, to truly get into that condition where, you know, you're at the zenith, like you say, a fraction of a percent of 1% of the population, you must suffer. And most people are not willing to suffer to get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's almost completely a mental game. Dan and I used to say, one of the best things that Dan and I used to talk about was that the good trainers, some of the better trainers, the pre-contest people, they're really what they are is babysitters.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're really babysitters. And Dan and I had a joke, which was the sentence that you use the most often with pre-contest bodybuilders is, don't do that. No, don't do that. Because what happens is your mind, once you're training and your mind starts to mess with you, and people are giving you all this different advice, and you're getting leaner and leaner, and you're starving, your mind starts to play tricks on you. And you need somebody to literally keep you on track mentally. A lot of people who miss their peak or hit their peak will tell you that only thing they really did different was a lot of it was a mental approach. But a lot of it's half the job of a good pre-contest person, besides knowing other diets and stuff, is being a babysitter and keeping the person sane.
That's the next question I have for you, babysitter, because I've said that. That being said, give me your overall synopsis. What is your how do I say it? The mental profile of a bodybuilder. You know, if you had the psychogenic profile, if you had to evaluate them psychologically as far as why did they not listen and what are their misgivings, you know, all batched into one. What you know, as far as the resistance you see.
You know, unfortunately, it's not going to be most bodybuilders, as a lot of athletes are not very well adjusted people. There's a lot of OCD. There's a lot of they're not generally psychologically that healthy. And I hate to say that because it doesn't sound very good, but a lot of them are, as you'd expect, you know, do suffer some OCD type stuff. They take things to the OCD level of their training.
Yeah.
They tend to a lot of poor self-esteem, which is the opposite. Again, you think all that muscle, you think they'd be very, you know, they'd be full of esteem. They'd lots of self-confidence. It's the complete opposite. The muscle is usually, and the bodybuilding is to surround themselves from the low self-esteem type of thing. And you see that a lot of self-destructive behavior. at the higher level, and this is not uncommon to any high level sports. I mean, I trained worked with two Olympic track stars, 100-meter people, and they were neurotic messes. I mean, they were the most neurotic messes I've ever seen in my life.
Male more than female, or
both female?
Both.
Yeah, and they were neurotic messes. So I hate to paint a bad picture, but I have to say that most of the bodybuilders, I've known a few, of course, that were level-headed, well-adjusted, people for sure, they exist. But on the whole, having worked with and hung out with and whatever, quite a few mid-level and very high-level bodybuilders, psychologically they're not well.
I got another very good question for you, but first, Rado Baines. Hey, Rado, how are you, man? Your legs are enormous, biggest thighs I know. Thanks for the compliment, Steve Umberger. Great discussion, guys. Much appreciated. It's our honor. And Boris says runners are neurotic.
Oh, yes.
Do you agree?
Now, Boris made a good point. The most neurotic athletes I've ever worked with are marathon runners, are long runners.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know necessarily. I mean, to be honest with you, they're just so neurotic that they will not anything. They'll run when they're sick. They'll run when they're injured. They are so stuck in running the runner's high, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I know what it means, but explain neurotic. Like, how would that characterize?
Well, neuroses. I mean, again, I think that they suffer anxiety and depression, and I'm not going to say that I wasn't part of that. When I was a younger guy, I got to tell you, I went through a period where I was probably in my 20s, and I was so focused, on bodybuilding that, like, I wouldn't even go on vacation. My mother invited me to go on vacation to a tropical island, and I asked her if there was a gym, and she said no, and I wouldn't go. In retrospect, I'm an asshole. I'm 25 years old, and I was like, I'm hardcore. I've got to work out. I can't miss a workout. Blah 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 blah. And in retrospect, that was a totally ridiculous thing to do.
I've done it. I wouldn't take up the trash. I wouldn't take up the trash at my, when I lived with my family when I was a kid, because I thought that excess work would
burn calories, right? Waste calories. So I'm not going to say I haven't been there myself.
No. Frank Zane said this. Tell me if you agree. And sometimes when I say, "Do you agree?" people think I expect them to agree, and of course you don't have to. But Frank Zane said this. He said, and I'm paraphrasing. He said, "If you're a guy who's been training for years and years, and you hit 40, and the goal is still to either get the primary end result goal is still, getting the 350 bench or building the 18-inch arm, and that's it. You kind of missed the boat, and you didn't use bodybuilding as a bridge to excel in other arenas.
As a route of growth, mentally and physically. No, you missed. Yeah, if you're still in, and look, I still know guys that are still doing the exact same thing I knew in the early '90s as trainers in the same gym.
Really?
Where I started, and they're still doing the same thing, and they never moved on. They never, escalated to anything else. But yeah, he's right. I mean, bodybuilding or weightlifting or whatever is an amazingly healthy, beneficial activity that should help you to, move on and do other things and grow and all that. But yeah, I would agree. And what happens to a lot of guys, because they can't move out of that phase, they just end up getting injured and quitting. They end up, they're so injured by the time they're 40 or 45 because all they're doing is that same thing, trying to hit a max bench and get a big arm and a this and a that. They just end up so injured and, torn up that they basically just can't train anymore.
And then when they can no longer do those things, what happens to them?
Well, a lot of ex-athletes, nothing. They don't do anything. They can't make that transition. They can't do something else. They can't go take yoga and martial arts and maybe, train really, really light or, something like that. They're not able to transition to something else and nothing. I mean, they just turn into, look at a lot of ex-military guys and ex-college athletes. You would never know they did anything.
No.
Because they just don't keep it with them. When they're done, they're done. When the mission of the sport or the military is over, they're finished. They can't transition to something else.
Lou Ferrigno, I was just watching a video, and his daughter asked him, "What are you doing for training now?" And he said, "Well, I still basically do the same movements, but the volume is much less, and my rep scheme is much higher." He does like 14 to 16 reps. He goes, "Look, I'd love to go heavy. He's probably the biggest bodybuilder ever on stage. I think it was 318 in the '94 Olympia or something. And But he said, my joints just won't take it. The tissue is no longer viable for that. He didn't say it like that, but so he accepted it at least, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But he's had a lot of success outside of the stage, a lot.
Well, exactly, yeah. I mean, obviously he sort of used the Arnold model to use it as a stepping stone to other things, and he did a pretty good job with it. He might not have been Arnold's success, but he still was on a lot of television shows. You know, everybody recognizes him. He was on that sitcom. Remember, the funny thing, my favorite, I don't know why, but just that he ended up on that sitcom with
King
Kevin.
of Queens?
Yeah, King of Queens.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I thought was a great addition, you know, because they weren't using him as like just because he's a big muscle head, you know, just happened to be Lou Ferrigno, their neighbor, which I thought was a really neat.
You know, I've always thought that Arnold, you know, you could throw Lou in there, The Rock and Stallone. I think they made it in Hollywood because, yeah, they were very well developed, but they were able to develop their character so you look past the muscle.
Yeah.
Because who cares? Everybody's muscular now. That's not enough. And you get these local guys. I've done some, you know, marketing for some of these guys, and, you know, they want to do this and that. Like, well, you know, what do you have? What do you got going on? Well, you know, I won the show, or I've got a big arm. I go, that doesn't get you in the door.
Well, I call that I call that pretty girl syndrome.
Oh, okay.
All the pretty girls that, of course.
Well, I'm always my daily quarry is not to get broken in half by guys like Boris, so I can't say that.
Yeah, well, again in Brooklyn, there's always the funny thing about Brooklyn. There's two kinds of guys in Brooklyn. There's the tough guy. Now, if you look historically speaking, you follow me. There's the tough guy and there's the funny guy. You will notice that the best fighters and the best comedians have come out of Brooklyn.
Really?
Notice all through Rocky Marciano, all the big comedians. If you look back, historically speaking, the best fighters and the best comedians come out of Brooklyn. There's a reason for that.
Mode of survival?
Yes. So either you're the tough guy or you're the funny guy. I was the funny guy. So my friends were so you're the funny guy. Everybody likes you. They take care of you. I was a little skinny white guy in Brooklyn in the 70s. And Brooklyn in the 70s was the murder capital of the country, by the way. Oh, yeah, that was a very dangerous place. And I was the funny guy. And, you know, I could talk my way out of stuff and kept myself out of trouble. And I was always friends with the tough guys. But those are the two guys that come out of Brooklyn.
Will, how does one fare if you're not tough or funny in Brooklyn?
Not well. I guess probably not that well. I mean, you end up in that kind of middle ground, I guess, where you're not entertaining enough or funny enough to people to protect you, and you're not tough enough not to get your ass kicked.
So I'd have to start drinking beer. So going back earlier, I would say it would be pennies down the drain if people do go and pony up $300 for one of these over-the-counter test boosters. There's better ways.
No, there are ways. I did post. I don't know if you can post it on yours, but you know my whole article on test boosters. People might want to check out, and if you can grab it and put it on your page. So
by the way, everybody, you want to go to Brink Zone? Is it www.brinkzone.com? Yeah, Will's got a great business page with all kinds of information that goes much far afield from what we could do right here, right now. So just make a note of it. You know, you can go there, you can peruse it, you can shoot them questions and messages, and you can help yourself out with some information. But I'm sorry.
So basically, you know, I approach them as a category. You know, the problem with T boosters is, as we were talking about earlier, the study issue. There's also something that I like, even if they do boost testosterone a little bit. I like something I like to call physiological threshold, which you and I discussed a little bit.
Yes.
You can boost testosterone. Anybody who's done testosterone, as I asked you earlier, if you did a shot of testosterone, like say 25 mgs, what would happen? You'd get a little, but you know, your labs would go up, right? You'd show a 20%, but end of the day, would you see any differences in strength or body comp or any? No, you wouldn't see the damn thing. So, you know, there's a threshold where you've got to reach with testosterone to actually see any benefit. And as a scientist type who's been around the block a long time, I only care myself these days to see studies that show, did they get bigger, did they get stronger, or did they, you know, lose body fat? Because if I don't see those three things, I don't give a shit. I don't care about the rat. I don't care about the lab test. I don't care. I want to see where the rubber hits the road. And anybody who's ever done any testosterone knows that nothing really happens till about, 400 mgs? I haven't done any. That's about 400 mgs where things really start to happen. Well, you're never going to get any remotely close to that type of stimulation from any sort of booster. Going back a little bit, people that are, that's not to say people shouldn't try. That is a lot, magnesium deficiencies, zinc deficiencies, vitamin D deficiencies, selenium deficiencies. These are not uncommon in the American population. And so,
especially D.
Yeah, especially D.
That's almost everybody.
I encourage people to definitely make sure any of those deficiencies are taken care of to optimize their testosterone production. But beyond that, that's as far as they're going to get. I mean, they'll optimize whatever their normal body would produce. But I haven't seen none of the T boosters to this day. And another thing I used to do, and I'll do it again, I will put out a reward. I put out a reward to several companies that if they want to spend money and get a study done on one of their T boosters, I will personally get it done for them. I can get studies done in labs. I've got contacts all over the place. If they want to put their money where their mouth is, I will personally get the study done for them. I will write up a raving article about how good it was. I will apologize for ever saying any T booster didn't work for them, right? And I've made this offer since I wrote that article, and not one goddamn company's ever taken me up on it.
I was going to say, do you think you'll get any takers now?
No, they ain't got the balls, and they know. And I've done that with I'll tell you what, I'm not a good poker player because I don't bluff. I'm a sucky poker player because I don't bluff, because I don't have the, I would only make an offer on this type of thing if I knew I was going to win, is what I'm trying to tell you. I wouldn't do it for like a nootropic. I wouldn't make this bet for nootropic because they might win. It might work.
Right.
I'll do it with GH boosters. I'll get the study made. I will help fund it. I'll write up a glowing report if it actually does anything that I give a shit about. But I don't have to worry about it because it's not going to happen. I did that with magnetic bracelets, those stupid ass magnetic bracelets.
Oh, God.
Well, I wrote a nasty thing about it, and one of the president of the company of the biggest.
Is that the copper deal that they put out?
No, I think this was pre-copper. I think copper is the leader bullshit. This was pre. This was like, this was the magnetic bracelets. There's some focus of rearranging your molecules in your wrist or some shit. Well, I put out a nasty video, and the owner of the company got a hold of me and tried to, give me a bunch of shit. We've got university studies and blah 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 blah. And I said, and I gave him the same thing. I said, look, show me the studies. I said, or I'll get one done for you personally. I'll get it done in a real lab. We'll get it published, and I will write up the most glowing report. I will sell so many fucking bracelets for you. You won't believe it. And not one, he disappeared off the phone. Not one company's ever taken me up on my offer, and they never will.
And they have that infomercial,
right?
And the person puts the bracelet on, and then they do some little hokey orthopedic test, and the person's like, "Oh my God, my strength is back," or whatever. Like
I'm a scientist at heart, Mike, but at the end of the day, I'm a guy from Brooklyn, and from Brooklyn, at the end of the day, is no bullshit. They're not. If you know what I mean, we tell it like it is.
I like
that. We're gonna call you on your bullshit, and you're going to fess up. We'll cut right through all the nonsense and just get down to the reality of it. And I'm a Brooklyn guy to my core.
Well, Boris just kind of backed you up on that. He said, as they get older, they have a very difficult time cutting back on weight and number of days training. They end up with surgery. Oh, that's not really Brooklyn, but he's on the same. He said there's such a thing as a Pygmalion effect. Did I spell it right? And John Ziccarelli is saying to you, Will, if one wanted a product studied with your assistance, would that mean you'd help with the human study process? John Ziccarelli asked you that.
Yeah, no, I would get the lab involved. I have various contacts in university level labs. I would help set up the protocol. I'd work with the company to decide, how it was done, how many milligrams, training, diet, whatever needed to be done so they were satisfied that this was a study that would make them happy. And then now the trick, however, one of the caveats here is no matter what the results are, they have to promise to let us publish those results. Because some companies will say, well, we only want you to publish the results if they're positive, and I'm not going to do that. You're going to have to eat it one way or the other. John
is countering, John Ziccarelli. Yeah. Couldn't I get a university and have a doctor conduct studies on groups as well?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. I have contacts in those university labs, but it's not that as easy as walking into a lab at a university and saying, I want to do a study. This is exactly what we would do. We would have this done in a university lab, of which I have good contacts through. But you don't want doctors. You don't want medical doctors. You want like exercise physiologists. You want people to know what they're talking about. Like,
John wants to know what the cost roughly is to do something like this.
That's a tough one. They've come way down from what they used to be. I couldn't give you a number. It depends on how many people are in the group, how long you want it to run. I will say that when I've done consulting work for companies and they ask me what should we do with a product, my first thing I say to them is we need to do a clinical study. And they always go, well, oh my God, those are expensive, and we don't know if you want to pay that kind of money. Using the pharmaceutical model, if you spend $100,000 on a study and you get a good benefit, you have a clinical study to put out there, you're going to get your money back times 10. I mean, the pharmaceutical model shows that over and over and over again. When I was working with ProLab, I'll give you an actual example. I'm working with ProLab.
Yeah, that's a Connecticut company.
Right. Now, back in the day when John and Tom owned it, now it's owned by
Tom Rourke. I know Tom.
Yeah, right. Exactly, right. My old buddy. So when Tom and John owned it, I developed a product for them called metabolic thyroline. That was my product. And I said to them, they said, what do you want to do? I said, we need to do a clinical study. I said, if you guys really want to sell a lot of this, not just make up claims and pull bullshit together, we need to do a clinical study. We did a clinical study. This cost about $70,000. We got results. We got it published in a peer-reviewed journal, and they sold the shit out of that stuff. That was actually what put them on the map to get purchased.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. We're getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know why. Still getting feedback?
I'm okay on my end.
I think I eliminated it. The average layperson, do they care about studies like that?
Yeah, I think they do. I really do. I mean, obviously, it depends on how you position and market it, but I think they really do. Yeah, if you say, we did a clinical study was published showing that the group that got metabolic thyroline lost, 7 pounds more fat than the group that didn't. Yeah, I mean, people really do want to hear that. The media is more interested.
In the pharmaceutical / supplement company landscape, what do you say about big corporate money and investigator bias, and how proliferative is it? As far as getting real studies done.
As far as I'm usually more not that that's not a factor, because it is a factor. I'm generally more concerned about who does the study than who pays for it per se. That doesn't mean I would ignore who paid for it. I mean, a good place, a good lab, and all that. They're not going. If you go and throw a study, that is, make a shitty study, and you lose all of your respect, you're not going to get anybody else to come back. So a good university lab is not going to say, okay, you gave me this much money, I'm going to give you the results you want. It just doesn't happen that way.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't happen that way. However, humans are humans, and they want to please the person that's paying the bills and all that. And therefore, even if they're not doing it intentionally, there are still ways for their own bias to kind of work its way in there somehow. This is why, again, when one study comes out, paid for by whoever wants the product, you don't get that excited about it. It has to be reproduced by a third party. I never get excited when I see a study come out and I see that the company who wants to sell it funded it. I want to look at who did it, but B, I'm only really going to care when it's reproduced by somebody else who has no skin in the game. That's really how science works. Unfortunately, because the market moves so fast, we've kind of jumped over that reproduced part. People don't want to wait, but most physicians and scientists and stuff don't get real excited about a single study done by a company or something who funded it. They're going to wait for it to be reproduced, which is actually takes us back to what?
I got a little feedback. John asked your thoughts on Jacob Wilson and his HMB study.
Is that the one? I mean, there's been a number of HMB studies. HMB is an interesting topic. Is that the one where he claimed they put on something like 30 pounds or some? Is that the most recent one?
John, if you could answer that. I'm not sure.
There was a study that came out that was very questionable, that they put them through an almost impossible workout, and they put on a ridiculous amount of muscle, to the point where a bunch of researchers, which is very unusual for researchers to throw they're usually very respectful of each other.
Will, he said yes, the new one, it was the free acid form.
Right. So that study got a tremendous amount of criticism to the point, and this is very rare for other researchers to get together and write a letter to the journal saying that we think these results are so unlikely that something is wrong, meaning they made a mistake or they fudged the numbers or whatever. And during that study, the results were so unlikely, like these were like Anadrol type results, that a big collection of researchers, and they very rarely do this because they tend to stick together. They don't want to throw each other under the bus. A whole group of researchers, many of which I knew, put a big long letter together and wrote to that journal saying that they felt that something was really, really not on the up and up about that study.
So what happened with that?
I don't know. I mean, I couldn't tell you because I wasn't there. So of course, but it happens. And this brings us back to my early example when I was saying that I would want to see a third party university reproduce his study before we could. What needs to happen there, Mike, is that they need somebody else, not associated without any financial interest, needs to reproduce that study. Then we'll get down to the brass tacks. What happened, I don't know, but the results were so impressive, nobody believed it.
So that can happen. Home run results.
Yeah,
the results are too good.
And what can happen? Sometimes if you go through the data and the numbers, sometimes you can see what happened. Sometimes you just can't. I mean, you just don't know. They just didn't account for something.
David Bachman Jr., Muscle Media sold HMB years ago. Yeah, they were kind of famous for that, weren't they? Bill Phillips.
Remember, it feels like DECA.
Yeah, it feels like DECA. I think there is always the specter of an investigator cherry picking, not necessarily, maybe cherry picking some data as opposed to others.
You can cherry pick certain numbers in your data sets that make things look more beneficial than they are. You can do that. But I'll tell you, speaking of HMB, so let's go way back. The guy who brought the early HMB guy, his name was Nissen. Nissen brought HMB to Bill Phillips and had all these great results. And understandably, Bill was excited and he sold HMB. He sent me a case of it back in the day. I didn't notice anything myself. He said, try this, Will. It's really exciting. This guy Nissen, he's a well-known researcher. He sent me a case. I noticed squat. Now, what happened, speaking of third party, because the results were so impressive from some of that early HMB research, other labs tried to reproduce it and they couldn't.
Really?
Labs that tried to reproduce most of that HMB research that got all those benefits did not find those benefits.
Wow.
You will not find most researchers who have looked into HMB in any sort of impartial, not terribly impressed by it.
Didn't your compadre, Dan Duchesne, do a lot of work for Bill Phillips?
Yeah. But I mean, mostly just in the writing department. He didn't do. He wasn't doing anything in the supplement design.
Oh, he wasn't. I thought he was in product development.
Yeah, no. Dan had his own stuff. Remember, like Agent Orange. I called it Agent Orange. Sorry. I called it Agent Orange. He didn't like that, actually. What was it? What was his name?
Ultimate Orange?
Ultimate Orange, yes, which I called Agent Orange, which he hated that. But yeah, so he worked, what was the name of Next Nutrition? Remember, so he was working with Next. So Ultimate Orange. And, was
that Tom Ciola, or was that Hot Stuff?
That was David, Next Nutrition. David, who's a British guy. But I worked for him for a little while myself. I forget his last name. David, tall, thin British guy. Somebody out there might be listening, might know what we're talking about. So Dan was strictly writing for Bill Phillips. He didn't do any product R&D or anything like that. So Nissen was the guy who brought the whole HMB thing to Phillips. He did the studies. The studies looked very promising. He brought them to Phillips. Phillips sold it. And as time went by, a number of labs tried to reproduce those studies and could not reproduce those effects.
Wow. So that's not a good thing.
No.
No.
Not at all.
Were there any ramifications on that or no?
I think the ramifications mostly were, HMB sales went to shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Well, I mean, look, again, I never noticed a thing from HMB. I never met a human being who noticed anything from HMB in the real world. So a lot of stuff that works, obviously, if it has legs, it tends to work, right? It's going to stay in the market. I think the bad studies, that the negative studies, and the fact that people generally didn't notice anything, pretty much killed it. But it's been around. It's still there.
We're not there yet. But whenever I have a great guest on like you, I have 5 questions at the end. But I'm going to go to. We're not at the end yet, but I'm going to ask you one of them. What are your today, as things exist right now in the supplement industry, things that are offered? What are the 3 most effective supplements? The 3 most that you'll get the most bang for your buck.
Creatine always. Creatine always, no brainer, forever. We should get a whole show on creatine because
we will.
The alternative creatines, the magic. I have a whole talk. We can talk about creatine
next Thursday, and I'll even have a beer with you.
All right. So, creatine, of course, whey protein, absolutely.
Yes.
And the third one is the more up in the air one.
I'll tell you what mine is because I agree. I say creatine, whey, and for me, vanadil sulfate.
Now there's one I haven't known. Speaking of talk about a way back supplement. Boy,
let me tell you, the best was Sport Pharma vanadil sulfate back in the early 90s. Man, I'm telling you.
Now the person who introduced vanadil sulfate was Anthony Almada.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Also introduced creatine monohydrate to Bill Phillips.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The third one is, the third one from a strictly bodybuilding perspective, that's a tough one. I mean, if absolute 3, if I could narrow it down to 3, I guess I'd say vitamin D.
Yeah, that's good too. Yes.
I think and not that it's proven to do, not that it's been so proven to drain muscle, but there's such a common lack of it. It controls so many so many hormones.
Well, let me just interject because 70% of the population is bereft of it as well. But
it would either be D or it would either be D or fish oil.
No, right. John Ziccarelli, I should have said top 4 because he brought up a good thing, and I talk about this a lot. He asked Vanadil over berberine. Berberine is very good, and he also remembers Sport Pharma's Vanadil. There were pumps galore, but yeah, berberine.
Well, the mechanism is very apples and oranges. So you're comparing apples and oranges by mechanism. Both, vanadil sulfate worked by increasing insulin sensitivity at the receptor, whereas berberine is working in a whole different area, but actually acts more like metformin. It's a different pathway, so it's a very apples and oranges. My issue with vanadil sulfate, I used it and I actually did notice a bit more of a fullness and pump in the day, but it's pretty tough. Vanadil sulfate is actually kind of hepatotoxic.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't good for the rats. I can tell you what, it poisoned the rats. And you remember that any of those micrometals, you notice that there's none of those micrometals in high doses are good for you. Iron, zinc, selenium, all of them. Well, why would vanadil sulfate be, so I used vanadil sulfate back in the day. I did notice a bit more I did actually get like a better pump in the gym. But when I read the data and when you look at, there's none of those micrometals are healthy in higher doses for long periods of time. And there was some toxicity to the rats and stuff. I did not take vanadil sulfate beyond like back in the 90s.
My good Alabamian friend, Dr. Walter Bennett, brings up a great point, and I'm lucky I didn't stroke out on this stuff back in the 90s because ephedrine.
I knew you were going to say ephedrine.
Specifically dimetrodine in those white bottles. You can buy as much as you want.
I knew it.
Oh my God.
I never took one dose. Never took it.
No.
I don't like stimulants. I like my good black cup of bomb-proof coffee in the morning. You got to try some bomb-proof coffee if you're a coffee guy. I have a really killer nootropic. Speaking of nootropic, I have the best nootropic coffee recipe on planet Earth.
My friend Lance Stranahan would love that because he buys the beans, he formulates that. He's big on the nootropics. Yes.
I have the best.
Can you share that? Can you
go to Brink Zone and look up bomb-proof coffee. It's on the top of the page.
What's it called?
Bomb-proof coffee.
Bomb.
Yep. And that is the best nootropic cup of coffee you'll ever have.
Really?
Yes. I might even start making it. I'm trying to get somebody to make it for me.
Let's see. Dimetrodine was from AST, Sports Sciences. Yes. Also, Sport Pharma had a good one. Can't think of the name. It's John Ziccarelli once again. So those are the supplements right there. Let me ask you a couple of questions here. I'm going to throw some names at you, and just some statements. You're going to give me your impressions. Your favorite firearm?
Wow. 1911.
What's that?
1911 is the zenith. You know how sharks have not changed in 100 million years because they're so perfect?
I didn't know that.
No, the hundreds of millions of years. The shark looks exactly the same as it did then because it is the zenith of design by nature.
Wow.
The 1911 pistol was created by John Moses Browning over 100 years ago, and it is mostly in the hands of a good shooter. It is the zenith of combat handguns.
Really? Do you have like a mini armory?
No, you know what? I actually have a very small collection. Interestingly enough, I never had
that would be kind of like maybe a Glock man or something.
I don't like Glocks.
No,
never have. Not that they don't have their place, but as far as history and shootability and beauty and all that, the 1911, and I don't even shoot them anymore. I used to own about 8 of them, but as far as the shootability of them, and they got us through 2 world wars. The 1911 would have to be, as far as art and function and all that. And I don't even use them anymore. But Glocks, I haven't been a fan. Doesn't mean they're not good guns. I just don't like them.
Very nice. Boris says he tells all his patients about bomb-proof coffee. Amazing stuff. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. I'll let you know because we're going to have you back on. We're going to talk about creatine.
It is.
Tell me a little bit about somebody. These guys, a couple of guys want one good Dan Duchesne story from you.
Good. All right, I'll give you a good Dan Duchesne story.
I know there's a bevy of them out there.
I got a good one. I got one. I'll give you a good story about a Dan Duchesne story. So, remember DMP? Remember who is DMP? Right. Talk about some nasty. Now, there's another thing I left the industry because of DMP. So Dan brought DMP back onto the market, right? So Dan and I go out to now. Dan always was dating these huge female bodybuilders. His girlfriends are always these big female bodybuilders. So we go to dinner. And we're sitting at this Italian place, and his girlfriend is red in the face. She's sweating profusely. She's breathing hard. And I said, Dan, is your girlfriend okay?
Is this after dinner? You're done eating, or
no? We're sitting there with our food. We're eating. And she is sitting there sweating profusely, and she's red, and she's not looking too happy. And they're sitting across from me. They're running. And I said, Dan, is she okay? He goes, oh, she's fine. I just gave her a dose of DNP, and she's okay. So I'm talking to Dan, and as I'm talking to Dan, I see his girlfriend go like this into her spaghetti, face first into her spaghetti, and so Dan reaches over and grabs her by the hair and pulls her up, and her face is covered in spaghetti, and she has fainted. She has fainted out cold from all the DNP that he put into her. And he calls the waiter over and he goes, I need water, cold water now. And, he said something about she's having a diabetic. She needs water because he wasn't going to tell him. So the waiters bring over a bunch of ice cold water and we're, putting ice around her and trying to wake her up and all that. So he almost like boiled her to death in fucking DNP.
The DNP, that was taken for pain?
No. The DNP was basically burning calories.
Fat
and it
burner,
worked.
right,
It's very effective. I used to call it, and he didn't like this either. I used to call it dieting by bug spray because it used to be in bug spray to kill bugs. So what it does is it raises your internal temp and your metabolic rate and stuff. So it really does help burn body fat, but it's really nasty shit. And
I've read it can consume you. You take too much or it's not the right amount.
Yeah, all sorts of nasty stuff. So apparently you take enough of it. So she faints face first into her spaghetti and meatballs. And I thought we were going to have to take her to the hospital. She did finally wake up. We got her cooled down. We got ice and stuff all over. And he said, well, I thought we were going to go out, Will, but I think we're going to have to call it an early night. I'm going to take her home. I forgot what her name was. And the two of them, he sort of carried her to the taxi and off they went.
What was his background? Was he an athlete at one time, or I think he competed, or none of that? Or?
Dan was a really interesting guy. No, Dan had a lot of health problems. He was a young guy. He actually had a lot of genetic problems. So no, Dan was really more just up here. Dan was a real genius in his own way, and a real troublemaker. He was he was like Bart Simpson meets Einstein.
Oh God.
That's pretty much what you got out of Dan. He was a brilliant guy.
I got another name for you here, only because I watched the video with him today. I was looking up some supplements and the old, metrics company. If you have any info or any thoughts on Scott Connolly.
Scott, really, really smart guy. Brilliant guy. The problem with Scott, for me at least, I mean, I always got along with Scott. I like Scott, so I'm not trying to say anything negative. But Scott was one of those guys that you talk to him about a topic, and he was really, really good. He pathways and mechanisms and da-da-da, and you'd be like, and then you'd get home and I'd sit there and I'd think about it, and I'd go, no, that's not right. Scott could get you going, around it and get you all messed up, and to the point where you had to go home, and if you had the science behind you and stuff, I had to go home and I have to go back and think about it. I remember once at the Olympia, we were at a party and he was talking about something. And I'm like, okay, he's talking about pathways. And I went back to my hotel room, and I remember lying there going, no, that's not true. I had to work with all the information he throws at you.
But would he believe in what he's saying, or he was just trying to befuddle you?
I don't know. It's a good question. With Scott, you never know. Scott was very ardent that his original. Now, did you ever have the metrics in the original cans, the separate debate? Remember, that stuff was awesome.
Very good. I lived on it.
Right, but when it went to the packets, it wasn't the same.
No.
Now Scott maintained that they messed with his formula. That the original base, and what was the other one called? It was base and something.
Yeah, right. There was two. You had to mix.
Right. There was two. One was called the base. I forget what the other one was called. But he maintained that they messed with his formula a bit to save money and stuff when it went into just the packets of MetRx. And I tend to believe him, because I really like the base and the water, but it was the two cans. So
I was just reading about it today. Yeah.
Whether Scott was intentionally baffling with bullshit or he was being honest in his own head, I don't know. I will tell you, there are some very smart people out there who can baffle you with bullshit like nobody's business. Nobody was better at than Scott Connolly. I can tell you that. And I know some bullshitters, and like I said, but he's a very smart guy.
Will, are you going? This is from John Ziccarelli again. Will, are you going to do work for Bill Phillips as he resurrects EAS? I'm getting Bill Phillips on here in a couple of weeks, by the way.
How are you?
Maybe I'll have you guys come on together. I'll have to find out.
That'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. We can talk muscle media. Yeah, please let me know.
You know who I want to get? I want to get Pete Grimkowski on with John Romano, because Pete Grimkowski, I've talked to him. I've interviewed him a few times. Listen, he's on record. He said he used to do 9 3cc syringes of Deca a day. He would do 5 100-tablet bottles of Winstrol and Anavar a day, every day, for months on end. And that's what he did. And, he's alive, but
he's alive.
It's a law of diminishing returns. I mean, I'm pretty good friends with Bill's brother, Sean. I communicate with Sean quite a bit. Bill, I probably communicate once in a while. I mean, he hasn't pinged me. If Bill pings me and says, "Will, we're getting the gang back together," and I'd be thrilled to go and work with him on EAS. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Why not? Right.
Yeah. But I am, like I said, I do. Sean and I have always been pretty close. Bill and I were sort of more working, I would say, more professional, people. And once that all went, I can tell you. I have some. I'll give you a good Bill Phillips story if you want a funny Bill Phillips story.
I want to hear it.
A funny one. This isn't too bad. And so back in the day.
Excuse me, Will. Big Walter Bennett. He knows what that other item was with the original metrics. Plus. Right. Thanks, Will.
Well, everybody felt the base, and when you had it in the separate base and the plus, it was really great stuff. And like I say, Scott confided to me that they had messed with his formula, and it was not the same once it went into the packets. And I tend to believe him. But when you read, like, say, Scott.
Well, the only reason I keep interrupting you because I hate that. I try to let the person, I think I do a pretty good job. But these things pass. I don't see them. But
I'll never shut up if you don't interrupt me, Mike.
I like that. It's good. We need, I'm glad we need people like you. David Bachman Jr. says that Bill Phillips says he's bringing Myoplex back.
Right. Not really.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay.
I guess so. I mean,
it's nothing new, but
yeah, I mean, it's not really very exciting, but I mean, well, look, Bill made his money almost, exclusively from MRPs. I mean, for him, MRPs were a big home run. So I can understand him wanting to sort of start out of the gate with what he knows and what he had success with. So, hey, go for it. But I hope he has plans to, build from there, because the market, it's a whole new world out there since Myoplex and was a product. But hey, why the hell not? I mean, like I said, he knows MRPs better than anybody, and he pretty much made most of his fortune from MRP. So I can see him starting with what he's comfortable with.
Another name for you, and you give me your impressions. Lee Labrada and his company.
Lee is one of the nicest guys in all of bodybuilding. Very professional. I've always liked Lee. Always really got along with him. I call him. Actually, if people go to Brink Zone, I have an article called "People I've Known from the Industry." And
everybody here, remember, you want to visit Phil's page. It's great. www.brinkzone.com. It's right on Facebook. Sorry, Will.
So I wrote an article in there called "People I've Known." I met Arnold and Lee Haney and Bill Phillips and all that. And I also talk about Lee. And Lee, like I said, Lee is just one of the most professional. We were talking about bodybuilders who use their physique to grow and be intelligent. He's that guy.
Right.
That's the perfect example.
You know who the king is, though? Not another nice guy, is Troy Zucolato. If you want to talk about somebody who hit it out of the park after bodybuilding.
Now I know Troy, but I guess I wouldn't. I'm not making the.
He owns a string of youth tech clinics, testosterone and HGH stem cell youth revitalization clinics. He did a lot of real estate and stuff, but he got in when it just started, and he's been in it for 26 years. So he's done real well.
I don't know him that well, but
yeah.
So Lee is one of the handful of guys in the industry, literally, who is what I would call the good example of bodybuilding. The guy who did it right. Used it as a stepping stone, intelligent guy, didn't get into the bodybuilding lifestyle. Again, most people don't know what goes on. We'll have to talk about what goes on behind the closed doors of I will have to tell you about the party in Vegas that Craig Titus put on.
Oh my God.
Where we actually got kicked out of the Hard Rock of a private party. Now, you
did too, Will? So you were in cahoots with this guy?
Yes, in a sense. I knew Craig. That's a whole. We can get into that. So that's a whole other story. But
you were a younger man. It's okay.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that long ago. But I mean, think about what you have to do in Vegas to get closed down. There was naked girls on the dance floor doing all kinds of things. It was out of control. So, but now thing about Lee is that Lee never got into any of that. Lee was always a very professional. He saw bodybuilding as a business. He did it as a business. He would come and do his shows, with his wife, and off he would go.
Yep.
He did it right. So, and his product wise, I don't know. I know I know his product developer, really good guy. They're definitely. I think Lee. If I was going to pick 5 companies or 4 or 5 companies that I would recommend, and we can talk about this some other times, I've always recommended Labrada Nutrition. And I think the Labrada Nutrition Dutch Chocolate MRP is still the best tasting MRP of all time.
Really? I have to try that.
Yeah,
well, really. I asked that for a specific reason because I tend to agree with you. And also, I have another one here, and I've worked with him somewhat. And I just went out to his gym, his corporate gym. Great guy who really, paid his dues and worked really hard. Rich Gaspari and Gaspari Nutrition. And Rich told me it was the early 2000s because I was one of the guys using it, the original product. His M1T, he said he made $5 million off that product alone. It was the pro hormone.
Right. Well, M1, now think about, I mean, M1T, I'm going to be a negative. M1T was toxic shit.
It was.
It was really toxic stuff. I mean, it was.
In retrospect, when I was taking it, listen, that was like 1980s pharmacy stuff.
But I mean, now I was getting guys, I had guys taking M1T and stuff, and, they were getting liver enzyme. I mean, it was one methyl test. That's all it was. This was not the right thing about one MT was not a prohormone. It was straight up anabolic steroids.
Was it?
Yeah, it didn't convert into nothing. It was one methyl test.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was not a converter. A prohormone, by definition, converts into something, right?
Right.
One methyl test, there was a couple of them that were sold at the time that were very effective. You would definitely gain muscle, but they were very hepatotoxic, and they were straight up anabolics. They just were a slight molecule. Actually, and make a note to talk to Rick Collins about that too. He'll tell you the same thing. So one methyl T and a couple others. God, what was the other? There were like 2 or 3 of them at the time. Not halidrol.
Yeah. It began with there were 3 and
something. What was it?
Halidrol.
Was that the?
It was. I think it was like halidrol, but it was something you took in tandem with the M1T, and there was a third one. But Rich sent me like a big box, and he wanted to use me in like a before and after, but as historically is so with me, and to Rich's chagrin, he goes, Mike, you just can't get big enough, man. I don't get, he wanted me bigger, but that was a different kind of a funny issue.
My issue, like I say, there was a time before. What happened was, and again, this is typical when you overregulate shit, right? And you pass laws. When they banned the prohormones, the real prohormones, the 4ADs and all that, the result was that smart guys who designed this stuff just picked up a new category of things that were legit anabolic and straight up anabolic steroids, like 1-methyl test, which is toxic as a motherfucker. It wasn't halidrol. I can't remember the name, but there was like 3 or 4 of them, and they were straight up. They were literally anabolic steroids with a slight modification, but they didn't convert to nothing. They were straight up anabolics, and yes, you would put muscle on. And I did see some horrendous liver enzyme tests on those. You know what
Jerry Branham says? Jerry Branham, I was listening to him recently, and I've done a couple of interviews with him, but he said, listen, he never did them. He was in the Venice Beach contest. He trained with Arnold and all those guys. He had a good physique.
No,
but he said, he said, everything I know now, he said, listen, done in a prudent fashion, I don't see the problem with them,
What, anabolics in general?
Yes.
No, I agree. I mean, I think all should be legal.
I agree.
Legal. You should be able to go to a doctor and say, I want to do anabolics for physique enhancement, and the doctor should say, cool. Here's what I'm gonna write you a script for. That's what we used to be able to do that in the 70s and 80s.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I had a script in the early 80s.
People can get breast implants. They can get a nose job. They can get hair transplants. They can get the cheek.
Anabolics, like anything else, the problems for the most part are due to lack of knowledge and the fact that you're getting your information from your buddies in the gym. If you have a half decent doc who will keep an eye on your liver enzymes, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, whatever, they're very low on the toxicity.
Last question we're going to take, because this was great because we went, time passes, but we mentioned this, and David Bachman asked a good question. Then I got my final one for you. SARMs, and we were just talking about that. He just put SARMs with a question mark. Your thoughts?
I don't have a lot of faith in them. Safety data, again, I'm not a beta tester. Some people like to be kamikazes and be the first to try stuff. SARMs on paper looked very, very promising. The idea was to get the benefits of anabolics without the negatives. I don't think that's been proven. I personally, again, I don't think the long-term effects are well known. For some of the data that I've read, the benefits of the SARMs, there was negatives to go along with them, not that different from just doing a mild anabolic. From a purchasing perspective, remember if you're buying SARMs, you're buying it from some quote-unquote research lab. You don't know the quality. Again, if it was
Will, right now it's gray area, soon to be possibly illegal.
Very much a gray area. I think on paper SARMs are a very exciting and interesting idea. I just don't think. I mean, the pharmaceutical companies have been trying to come up with a really effective SARM that gave you the benefits of anabolics minus the side effects or the downsides for a while, and I don't think they've really perfected it. I guess I'd rather go with something that is a known entity that has a very well documented safety profile, pharmacokinetic profile and stuff, which would be, testosterone, nandrolone, whatever. I don't see yet. I'm just not real convinced. Now, I think SARMs may have, remember, SARMs were created for medical uses, particular clinical uses. There's probably are some clinical uses for SARMs. But
David got a little more pointed in the reason he brought it up. He just stated they have the most side effects via oral, administration.
Right. As far as anabolics or
no SARMs.
I haven't. Well, yeah. I mean, I have not looked at injectable SARM versus oral SARM, of course. But if they're an oral SARM or an oral drug in general, what happens, of course, is they have to prevent the first pass liver degradation. So the reason that oral steroids, for example, and a lot of oral drugs are hard on your liver is they have to acetylate them, which is to prevent the first pass liver breakdown and to make them orally bioavailable. That, however, the liver doesn't like it. So I couldn't tell you.
I'm gonna ask. We're gonna close out with, and I cut you off, unfortunately, but we'll let you finish the Bill Phillips story that you had for us.
All right. So this isn't that dramatic. This isn't like the Dan Ducharme story, but I mean, it's just, one thing again, coming from Brooklyn and the way I was raised and all that, I've had friends. I've been poor. I've had money. I've had friends that are worth $1 gazillion and friends that are worth nothing. My point being is that I was brought up in Brooklyn, we treat everybody the same, no matter who they are. Don't care. So I'm at the Arnold Classic, and this is when Bill
is it still like that today in Brooklyn? You get back there, it's not like that anymore, right?
Brooklyn has been taken over by yuppies and guppies and millennials and some fucking thing. I couldn't even tell you. Russians.
Now it's time for us to sound like old guys that walk to school with no shoes.
Yeah, went uphill to school both ways.
Yeah.
So I'm at the Arnold Classic, and this is when Bill's at his peak popularity. He had a big, giant booth, and he had his sports cars, and he also had taken to having security guys now with full, three-piece suits and the mics and the things. Yep. And so we're talking, and we go to the bathroom together, and the security guys come right in with us, and they're in the back wall, and I'm in the stall. He's taking a pee, and I'm taking a pee.
Hey, Will, do you think he needed security for any reason?
Well, I'm going to answer that question. I'll finish this one part, and then I will answer that question. So we're taking a pee at the stall, and the guy's in the back, and I leaned over and I said, "Do they shake it for you too?" And behind me, both of those guys broke out. Like they both broke out. The both security guys in the back tried to stifle it, like they broke out. And they stopped, and he looked at me like, "You're a cocksucker," And I was like, "Just asking, No,
he was pissed.
No, I don't think so.
No, really.
But he's a funny guy. Bill doesn't he didn't really let out emotion one way or the other. He just looked over at me. But the two security guards could hardly hold back from basically I'm poking fun at his self-importance. Right. Security-wise, you know what? I'm a very security-oriented person. Bill, and so that night, not that night, but other times I talked to him, Bill, and Bill said to me, we were at dinner once, and he said, "Look, I make a lot of money, and I get, he used to get hate mail. I mean, people, Bill was a shark. Don't ever forget that Bill was a shark in that business. I mean, he had people that didn't like him at all."
Will, I read that his goal was to destroy the other supplement companies.
No, it wouldn't surprise me.
Trample them.
Yeah. So I, being a very security-minded person, don't have any issues with it. But we were having dinner once, and and I remember how the security thing came up, and he said, he said to me, I know it sounds a little ridiculous, and I said, well, not really, Bill. He said, look, I'd rather have security standing around me than have a gun stuck up my ass at 2 a.m. and in my house. And I said, Bill, you've got no argument for me, man. If I was making that kind of money and I was a public figure, and some people, I knew people didn't like me. So for me, I have no problem with it. A lot of people, though, at the shows and other things thought it was him being,
Pretentious.
Pretentious and whatever. Me
Well,
personally,
imagine if he had the full folly of the internet as it is now, and the onslaught. Because you got the keyboard. I get threats, and who the hell am I? I tell this one story, and it's funny, but this guy. When I see you at the Arnold, I'm going to break you in two. And I don't go to the Arnold. I said, well, then there'll be two of me. But, what the hell?
That's a good line. I like that line.
You're going to break me in two for some pixelated
A
words?
lot of people were really hard on Bill about that. I'm naturally a very cautious, security-oriented person. And if I was making buco bucks and I was a public figure and I'm out in a big old booth, I wouldn't have no problem paying for a couple of security guys hanging around. It didn't bother me, like I say, but I could not help busting his chops. That doesn't mean I'm not going to bust your chops. So I had the perfect opportunity. He and I are alone in this bathroom. The two security guys are behind us, and they just cracked up. The guys behind us, they couldn't stand it.
That's a good memory. Maybe I'll recount that when I have him on here. Hey, listen, I really want to thank you. I learned a lot, man. Talking to guys like you, really. I mean, I think the worst thing you can do, and you've been in this deeper than I have over the years, is to lend yourself to dogma, and you don't do that. In other words, keep practicing the same old crap from many years ago. And there's some people who are bent on that, or they don't believe in anything that we talk about. Believe. We go with what we know. Belief is for ghosts. But a guy like you have a kaleidoscope of knowledge in your head, and I hope you keep plying it as you will. And maybe you will work with Bill. Have some fun in the new company. Maybe he'll need some increased security for you. Who knows?
I say me.
But will you come back on if I get somebody? Maybe we do a dual thing or something. Find somebody else. We could do creatine, which is.
Yeah, man, Mike, I'm good. Come on down to Florida sometime if you want to visit. I got a place in Fort Pierce.
Listen, Denise is going down to Burn. She's got it all set up, and I didn't get invited. I'm gonna be up here with the dogs. Yeah. With the swill. You look out the window in Connecticut, it looks like Bosnia or something. It's crappy here.
I left for, like I say, I have a place in Panama which I go to pretty regularly, but I was Panama, the country.
Panama. No kidding.
Yeah, I've been going there for about 10 years. But I don't know.
Hey, Will, let me ask you. Forget my non-cosmopolitan mindset, but is it dangerous there, Panama? I mean, isn't that like drug running all that?
No, Panama's quite safe.
Oh, it is? Okay, yeah. Good.
Other countries in the region are less so for sure.
Okay.
But one of the reasons I like Panama, because it's very safe.
Right, okay. Well, that's good.
You're safer in Panama than you are in any major New York city. I mean, any major U.S. city.
Now, I can believe that. Some of them, go to Baltimore, forget about it. So listen, everybody. Hey, Dave, thanks for the questions. Everybody, great questions. You gave a great accounting of yourself. You kept it rolling. We did almost, closing in on 2 hours, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Went fast, right?
Yeah. And listen, give it a thumbs up, share, visit Will's page, www.brinkzone.com. There's a lot of great information. It's like going to the Boston Public Library, one of the best libraries in the world. You can go in there and there's thousands of books by thousands of people with thousands of lines and paragraphs of shit that we don't know anything about. So there's a lot of information out there that you want to try to get a little bit of. And that's why I love doing this, talking to all these folks. And everybody's very kind and forthcoming, and they just want to help. So, Will, thanks again. Any parting thoughts at all?
No. I will just say that this craziness, I know, is dragging us all down. I know it's wearing on everybody. You're not alone in that respect. If you feel like you're the only one. I mean, you and I were talking about this. This shit's starting to get to me, Mike. I mean, this shit's getting old.
Listen, I'm a roughly hewn guy. I don't like to say I don't give a shit because I don't think that's a good way to think. But I'm not affected by things generally, and I'm able to look for. There's a difference between being positive, which just pushes you through, but optimism means you can clear out a space in the future and realize that things are going to be fine again. So then you operate towards that, and it's not so bad. But that's kind of clouded because here they have no plan. There's no end. Yeah,
it's difficult. So for people that are watching, just look, you heard from Mike, you heard from me. If you're, it's dragging. It's getting old on all of us, and so if you're feeling like some days like, you're the only one that's starting to get tired of this shit, you're not, because it's just getting old. So, you know, whether we could argue, we could debate all kinds of other things, you know, flatten the curve, not flatten the curve, all the rest of it. But, you know, this too shall pass, as my mother used to say to me. This
all will be well. All will be well.
And we'll get through it. But that'd be my parting thought, because I think a lot of people out there are feeling isolated in that, you know, they're the only ones that are, you know, stressed out or, you know, got to take a nap, because I got to take a nap every fucking day right now because I'm so fucking exhausted.
Will, you are appreciated, because I'll close it with this. David Bachman Jr.'s line: Will is one of few worth listening to in the biz.
Well, thank you, Dave.
You cut through all the morass and the chafe, and they find you, maybe a few others. But then you got all the charlatans and the snake oil salesmen and the canard slingers and the prevaricationers.
I don't have a lot of talents, Mike, but cutting through bullshit, getting down to what matters, is one of my few gifts in life. You know, as a scientist, and so being able to take science or other topics and maybe just cutting down to what matters, you know, what people need to know, is one of the few things I am good at. So great. I think comes through for people.
Well, listen, I'm glad you're out there and you're adding goodness to the industry. You know, I'm going to have Dan Solomon on next week, and he's, you know, putting the Olympia forth, so that'll go on. And Alex Ardenti, who did a really good movie on, it's called Sups. Were you involved with that at all or anything? No. He's another good one. You know, I've got a long list of guys. And
Alex is, I think he's on my friend list. I believe Alex is definitely on my friend list.
Yeah, he's a good guy doing good work out there. But listen, thanks again, Will. And listen, we'll come back on and we'll do creatine.
Yeah, we can do a whole show on. I know it's boring, but it's not.
I'll talk to Bill Phillips, see if we can do something on that.
All right.
That might be fun.
All right.
Hey, have a great night, everybody. Thank you. I'll be back next with let's see, next week, Rick Collins, Tony Pearson, Dave Spector, Dan Solomon, and then next week, Rehan Jalali, Alex Ardenti, and Dave Palumbo. So we got all of them coming. Maybe
Rick is a really good buddy of mine. So
who's that?
I got a good Rick Collins story someday.
Oh, do you?
Oh yeah.
Maybe we'll have you come on with Rick. That might be fun. Let me ask.
We get along really well, so that'd be a fun story. That'd be a fun.
You know, and I'm going to talk to you off camera maybe tomorrow, because I could use your help on something, and probably him too, for, you know, what I'm doing with all this, the direction I'm going in, because it is a business, and you know, it's a grind. And listen, I quit a long time ago doing things that I'm fair at or not good at. I get other people, because I only do what I'm good at. Right? You don't want to waste time. Like, what were we dickering around with? Technology. We were lucky. We were kind of lucky to get this going without calling someone, because I was ready to do that.
Well, I mean, I remember, but the reason I was able to get it on my page was I had to call somebody. My girl, my person, she told me how to get it on my page. So there you go.
Hey, listen, information is the most valuable thing. Spies will kill for it. Hey, Will, have a great night, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, Mike.
All right, guys. Thank you.